INFJs often let people underestimate them, not because they are unaware of it, and not because they lack the ability to correct it, but because underestimation quietly serves several of their deepest psychological instincts. To understand this, you have to look past surface traits like introversion or politeness and into the way INFJs experience power, identity, and meaning. INFJs are internally anchored. Their sense of self is not built from external validation, social dominance, or visible achievement. It comes from an internal compass that is unusually stable. Because of this, being misjudged rarely threatens their identity. When someone assumes they are naive, weak, passive, or incapable, the INFJ doesn't feel the reflexive need to defend themselves. Correcting others feels unnecessary when the INFJ already knows exactly who they are and what they're capable of. Proving oneself outwardly can feel hollow, even slightly embarrassing, when the internal truth is already settled. There is also a strong strategic intelligence at play. INFJs are pattern readers. They observe people the way others observe landscapes, noticing subtle shifts in tone, motive, insecurity, and intention. When someone underestimates them, the INFJ immediately understands the informational advantage this creates. Expectations drop, scrutiny softens. People reveal more of themselves when they believe they are in the presence of someone non-threatening or unimpressive. INFJs instinctively recognize that being underestimated gives them a clearer view of others' real behavior, unfiltered by performance or defensiveness. This is especially true in social and professional environments. INFJs often sense that overt displays of competence or ambition invite competition, projection, or control. By staying understated, they avoid triggering ego battles they have no interest in fighting. Their goal is rarely to win a room, it is to understand it. Letting others assume they are quieter, simpler, or less capable buys them psychological space. In that space, INFJs gather insight, build long-term influence, and decide carefully when and where their energy is worth revealing. Another reason INFJs allow underestimation is their complex relationship with power. They are deeply uncomfortable with power that is performative or coercive. They don't want authority that must be enforced through intimidation or constant assertion. The kind of power INFJs respect is subtle, ethical, and rooted in trust. If being underestimated means they can avoid positions or dynamics that demand aggressive self-promotion, many INFJs will accept that trade without hesitation. Being seen as harmless often feels safer than being seen as dominant. There is also a protective aspect to this behavior. INFJs are emotionally porous. They feel deeply, absorb atmospheres, and are easily affected by others' expectations. When people overestimate them, project onto them, or place them on pedestals, the INFJ feels the weight of those projections intensely. Underestimation, oddly enough, can feel lighter. Fewer demands, fewer assumptions, fewer roles to perform. Being underestimated allows INFJs to conserve emotional energy and remain inwardly free. This connects to their natural preference for privacy. INFJs are selective about visibility. They don't want their full inner world on display, and they are acutely aware that being recognized for depth or brilliance often invites intrusion. When people underestimate them, the INFJ's inner life remains protected. Their thoughts, values, and long-term plans stay safely out of reach. What others fail to see cannot be exploited, misunderstood, or prematurely judged. There is also a strong moral dimension to their restraint. They tend to believe that character reveals itself over time, not through announcements. Showing rather than telling aligns with their values. They would rather let results speak quietly than assert potential loudly. If someone underestimates them, the INFJ trusts that truth has a way of surfacing when it matters. They are patient with that process. They do not rush revelation. There is, too, an almost paradoxical humility mixed with quiet confidence. INFJs are aware of their flaws, their limits, and their ongoing growth. Because they don't see themselves as finished products, they don't feel entitled to recognition. At the same time, they are keenly aware of their strengths, especially their insight, foresight, and emotional intelligence. This combination makes them comfortable occupying a space where others misjudge them. The INFJ does not need applause to validate competence, nor do they need misunderstanding to humble them. Both coexist without inner conflict. In interpersonal relationships, allowing underestimation can function as a filter. INFJs are deeply selective about who gets access to their full depth. When someone dismisses them or fails to see their value, the INFJ quietly takes note. Not everyone deserves to know everything. Those who are capable of curiosity, patience, and genuine perception will eventually notice what others miss. Those who don't are often revealing that they lack the depth or sensitivity the INFJ requires for true connection. It's important to note that this behavior is not always healthy or intentional. Sometimes INFJs allow underestimation because they have learned that visibility can be dangerous. Many INFJs grow up feeling unseen or misunderstood, and over time, invisibility becomes familiar. In these cases, letting others underestimate them can be a learned survival strategy rather than a conscious choice. The line between strategic restraint and self-erasure can blur, especially when INFJs are exhausted or emotionally wounded. But at its best, this tendency is not weakness, it is discernment. INFJs understand that not every room deserves their voice, not every person deserves their truth, and not every situation benefits from their full presence. They are playing a long game that values alignment over dominance and meaning over impression. Another reason INFJs allow underestimation is their non-linear relationship with timing. INFJs are rarely operating on the same psychological clock as the people around them. While others focus on immediate wins, visible progress, or short-term recognition, INFJs are tracking trajectories. They are watching where people are headed, how systems evolve, and which moments will actually matter in the long run. Because of this, correcting someone's misjudgment in the present can feel irrelevant when the INFJ already sees how the story ends. Being underestimated now does not bother them if they know the arc eventually bends in their favor or away from the situation entirely. INFJs also tend to experience life inwardly before it ever becomes outward. Their insights often arrive fully formed, but translating them into language or action takes time. When people underestimate them, it's often because the INFJ is still incubating something internally. They are refining ideas, clarifying values, or emotionally processing layers that others never see. To an outside observer, this looks like passivity or lack of drive. To the INFJ, it is necessary gestation. They would rather be underestimated during this phase than rushed into premature expression that feels incomplete or distorted. Another overlooked factor is how INFJs handle conflict. They are highly aware of how easily conflict escalates when egos feel threatened. Demonstrating capability too openly can provoke insecurity in others, especially those who rely on hierarchy or dominance to feel safe. INFJs sense this before it happens. By allowing underestimation, they reduce friction. They keep interactions smoother, less charged, and more humane. This isn't avoidance so much as intentional de-escalation. INFJs are also deeply attuned to the difference between being seen and being used. When people recognize their insight or competence, they often begin to lean on it heavily, sometimes exploitatively. INFJs know this pattern well. Being underestimated acts as a buffer against becoming the emotional laborer, the unpaid strategist, or the invisible backbone of a group. When people assume the INFJ has less to offer, they ask for less. That distance can be a form of self-respect. There is also a quiet rebellion in their restraint. INFJs often reject the cultural obsession with branding the self. They resist reducing their identity to a digestible summary or selling their worth through performance. Allowing others to underestimate them becomes a way of opting out of that economy altogether. They refuse to flatten themselves for easier consumption, even if that means being misunderstood. On a deeper psychological level, INFJs are comfortable holding paradox. They can be both underestimated and deeply capable without needing to resolve that contradiction immediately. Many people feel an urgent need to correct inaccurate perceptions because ambiguity is intolerable. INFJs, by contrast, can sit inside that tension. They don't rush to collapse complexity into clarity for others' comfort. This tolerance for ambiguity gives them a quiet emotional endurance that often goes unnoticed. INFJs let people underestimate them because they understand something many never learn. Being underestimated is reversible, but being overexposed is not. Once people think they fully know you, curiosity dies, possibility narrows. By staying partially unseen, INFJs preserve mystery, freedom, and choice. They retain the option to step forward or step away without having to dismantle expectations first. In that sense, underestimation is not something INFJs merely tolerate. It is a quiet boundary, a selective veil, and sometimes even a form of power. Not the kind that dominates a room, but the kind that controls its own revelation, and that, for an INFJ, is the most meaningful power of all.